Stop fighting After Effects built-in tracker. If you want seamless screen replacements in 2026, this built-in VFX workflow is the only way to go. Let's dive into it. In 2026, we are completely revolutionizing our VFX workflows with the newest AI tools. And speaking of the newest AI tools, let me introduce you to Trippo 3D. Normally, getting custom 3D models takes forever. You're either digging through stock sites or diving into Blender with something that should take 5 minutes takes hours. That's why I'll be using Trippo 3D. It lets you take a single image, literally just an image, and convert it into a fully usable 3D model in minutes. So if I generate something with AI or grab a reference image, I could drop it into Trippo, and suddenly I have a real 3D object I can light, rotate, track into scenes, or bring straight into After Effects. So if you're doing VFX work or any kind of AI filmmaking or motion design, you definitely want to check out Trippo. You could try the image to 3D feature for free at trippo3d.ai. I'll put the link below and check it out to get an extra 500 credits and get 60% off your first month of the Pro plan. All right, let's get started on our project. Okay, so I'm in After Effects and I have my subject kind of pulling a phone in with a green chroma key on the screen and swiping up. I got some nice targets here, as you can see, and we're gonna superimpose a clip of a little shameless self-promotion here of swiping through my channel's videos. To do this, I'm gonna show you one way that you probably shouldn't do it, and then I'll show you the way that I would do it. So most people are a little bit intimidated to go outside of After Effects to do their motion tracking, and they would probably do it something like this. So they would go to track and stabilize, track motion, and then under the track motion, you would basically go to track type, perspective corner pin, and this will create 4 track points. And we'll attach these track points to these markers, basically where the black corner meets the white. And once we get all those track markers set, we can go ahead and track forward. And as you can see, it doesn't do a great job. I mean, the fact that the thumb kind of crosses over, it doesn't track the points correctly. And even if I wanted to track the other way, the phone doesn't start on the screen. So that's a problem. So I wouldn't use the tracker within After Effects for something like this. Instead, I would take my clip and I will go to Animation, Track, and Boris FX Mocha. Then I'll click on the Mocha icon and Mocha is gonna pop up. And I'm gonna go ahead and grab the X-Spline tool, as you can see up here. And instead of grabbing the points, the tracker marks, I'm actually going to grab the whole entire phone. And this is because Mocha actually is a different type of tracker. So this basically takes everything that's inside of this instead of the little tracker points like we did in After Effects. So this is basically taking the whole entire phone and it's going to track it. And then from there, and I'm going to enable perspective because it is sort of a 3D shot. And now I'm going to click on Show Surface. And this is basically where my shot is going to be superimposed. So I'm going to actually make this the whole entire screen. That looks pretty good, but it's going to basically use the same tracking data as the first layer that I made, but this is basically where the tracking data is going to be superimposed. So I'll go ahead and use this, my nice track forward and backwards tool. Instead of going one way, stopping and going the other, I'm going to click on this, and this is just going to do everything in one shot. And as you could see, it actually did a really good job tracking. Not only that, but when she kind of tilts the phone, because I enabled perspective, it basically adjusts the perspective of the screen. And as you can see, as she's pulling it out of the frame, it still takes the phone and tracks it perfectly. That's because of Mocha's enhanced tracking versus After Effects just has the point tracker. So that is tracked really well. We're gonna save that right up here, this button, we're gonna save that and close out of Mocha. And then back in After Effects, instead of doing the tracking data button, we could do create track data, and this is gonna apply it to our shot. First thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna go down to matte and I'm gonna click on create AE masks. And this is gonna create a mask of what we just tracked. And I'm gonna use this because basically I only wanna chroma key out my phone. I don't wanna use anything that's in the scene and use my chroma key. So let's say there's something that's green, like the trees in the background here, the leaves, or even like, let's say she has a blanket, maybe some of this will kind of get taken into the green. I don't want to affect my scene with my chroma key. So I want to basically use this and isolate it as best I can. So that's a pretty good one. I'll keep that and I'll label this my phone. And then I'm just gonna duplicate my phone map and we'll call this background. And I'll bring that to the bottom and I'll hit M for revealing my mask. And I'm just gonna invert this. And this is gonna basically take the opposite of what we had. As you can see, there's the opposite, basically has everything except for the phone. Okay, so next I'm gonna take my screen recording layer. I'm gonna bring that into my comp, scale it down a little bit. And I'm gonna double click and I'm gonna pre-comp this. I'll show you why in a little bit. Hit okay. And now I have to kind of match up the swipes. And I'm just gonna try to line it up as she scrolls. So it's a 1, 2, and then a press. So I'm gonna try to line that up as perfect as I can. And to do this, I'm gonna click on time, enable time remapping. And I'm just gonna keyframe my scroll. And I'll just try to line that up with her scrolls. Okay, so she scrolls. I could actually take this keyframe and I could easy ease it so it's a little bit smoother. And let me move that second one to when she scrolls again. And I'll do the same thing. I'll easy ease this keyframe. Okay, that worked out. And then she presses it. Okay, then the video starts loading. Okay, so I got my time remapping all set. Now the next thing I do before I apply my track to this is I'm gonna double click on my pre-comp that I made. And I'm gonna right click on my clip here and I'm gonna go to transform, fit to comp. And this is gonna make it look super funky. Don't get scared, it's okay. Go back to your main clip. And in my main comp, I'm gonna make sure that my transform is reset. So it takes up the full composition. I'm gonna hide this just because it's really throwing me off here. I'm gonna go back to my phone mat layer under my Mocha AE. And as I showed you before, I'm gonna use the tracking data this time. So I'm gonna click on create track data. And this is gonna bring all the tracking data back from Mocha. And down here, export option, I'm gonna make sure corner pin is selected, and it is. And layer export to, I'm gonna select layer 1 and hit apply export. As you can see, it applies the track really well. The only thing I have to do is get her thumb in the foreground here. So I'm just gonna bring that in the middle layer here, and that's starting to look really good. I just have to get rid of my track markers. So there's a few ways I could do that. It all depends on your shot. So for this case, I could actually increase the D-spot white, find that nice middle ground here where those get removed, and it doesn't remove too much of her thumb here. And that looks pretty good. Another thing I could do is I can go back to my Mocha shot and I could just use a basic circular tracker here, and I could just track each marker individually and then just use that as a mask on the tracking markers. But in this case, since it doesn't really remove too much of her fingernail and her fingernail is pretty much in motion, there's motion blur anyway, I'm just gonna leave that as is just for demonstration purposes. But there are a few ways you could do it. You could also create a mask within After Effects as well. If you wanted to do it that way, I would show you like that. So we would basically take an ellipse mask and do the same thing as Mocha. You would right click on track mask and then you would track that. And that would just track the motion of each of the black and white markers. It would take a little bit longer, but there's a few ways you could do it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and bring that back to the way it was. Okay, so I just have to make a few adjustments here. Like in my mask expansion, I'm gonna bring that down a little bit. And then I'll expand my background one. All right, so we take a look. It's starting to look really good. If I wanna enhance the motion blur of my actual screen, because you see the motion blur, the screen is very sharp here, and her thumb is very much in motion blur. And I have motion blur enabled on my shot, but it's just the amount of tracking points, it doesn't quite enable a lot of motion blur. So what I can do is if I type in motion blur in my effects and I use CC force motion blur and I apply that to my screen layer, you see it adds a nice motion blur. I could adjust the amount of motion blur there is. And that just adds a little bit more realism to it. Even when she's kind of moving the phone around like this, I mean, that basically is how a phone would look. It wouldn't be as sharp as it would be without the motion blur. But if I wanted to, right when she gets to the point where the phone is a little bit more static, I could split my clip here by hitting Command-Shift-D, and that's gonna split my clip, and I could just delete the motion blur when it gets to a static spot. It's not too jumpy, and you kind of get the best of both worlds here. All right, and that's how you achieve a good screen replacement And you could add a little bit of a glow as I did here, just kind of sell the effect a little bit more. And it's all about using the right tools at the right time. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Here's the final result.